Namaste, welcome to another edition of Navima's podcast. So, apologies, I was traveling, so I could not do the book reading or the podcast sessions for the previous week. So, now it's all back to schedule. So, today we're going to read the book. This is the book, Rama and Ayodhya by Meenakshi Jain, the prolific author who has wrote many groundbreaking books on Indic civilization, and she has played a pivotal role in proselytizing Indic concepts and defended many of the Indic thought processes across decades. So let me see. Okay, so people are joining, so I'll give few minutes for people to join. Till then, let me just share you the link where you can get this book. I'll quickly get the book here. We have the book here. Here it is. Let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, here we go. So here is the link where you can get the book. So it's published by Aryan Books. So Aryan Books, you can get it in India and also outside India. So it costs around 595 with discount. So this is a very important book, and I think this is one of the primary books where when we fought the case for the Ram Mandir, it was utilized. So very important book. So people who are listening, do consider buying the book. It's very important documents that we have here, and it's important that we support our Indic authors by supporting them, purchasing their books. So now, without any delay, let's go back to reading. Okay. I could not get the PDF ready. Next reading session, I'll have the PDF also ready. But today, I will be reading from the book itself. So let's read. I'm going to start with the preface. Preface is very interesting preface that we have. Preface. The Ramayana in Indian tradition. One day, the sage Valmiki, who practiced great austerities, asked the celestial seer Narada, "Tell me, great one, who is the most virtuous man in the world of humans? Who is the most honorable, dutiful, gracious, and resolute? Who is the most courteous, most dedicated to the welfare of all beings, the most learned, the most patient and handsome? Who is the man with the greatest soul, the one who has conquered anger, who is intelligent and free of envy? Who is this man whose anger frightens even the gods? I am sure you know such a man, and I am curious to hear about him from you." Narada was delighted with Valmiki's question and replied, "There are few men with all the qualities that you have described, but there is one man, O sage, who has all these virtues. Listen, and I will tell you about him." And Narada proceeded to tell Valmiki of the brave and illustrious Rama, born into clan of um, Ikshvaku. He said, "The story of Rama is edifying." So here we have the footnote. "The story of Rama is edifying and bestows merit. Anyone who reads it is it is freed of all sins." So this is telling people that okay, if you read the story of Rama, what will happen? The story of Rama is edifying and bestows merit. Anyone who reads it freed of all sins. The man who reads the Ramayana will be honored along with his sons, grandsons, and companions. When he dies and goes to heaven. The Brahman who reads this tale will become eloquent. The Kshatriya will become a king. The Vaishya trade will prosper, and even the Shudra will flourish in his own caste. Valmiki and his disciples honored and praised Narada after he had finished his story. Soon thereafter, while bathing on the banks of river Tamasa, not far from Ganga, Valmiki came upon two sweet voiced cronch. So cronch is a bird in ancient India. Two sweet voiced cronch birds making love. A hunter shot the male bird, which fell to the ground dead. Valmiki was so moved by the piteous cries of his mate that a shloka, a meter in grief, burst from his lips. Lord Brahma then appeared before Valmiki and gently said, "Your mind did not create this shloka meter. I produced this eloquent in you, eloquence in you. O best of sages, use this new meter to recite the tale of Rama, the most righteous, the most virtuous, and the wisest man in all the worlds, as you heard it told by Narada." Sattar 2340. Ra- Ramayana embodiment of family. Ramayana embodiment of family and public life. Valmiki recited the story of Rama, perfect man, ideal son, and brother, and rightful and righteous king. Though the chronicle of a martial hero, issues of conduct were central to Valmiki's composition. Brockington, 1998, page 465. Through Rama's earthly journey, Valmiki attempted to define the standards of family and public life. The Ramayana, in fact, became a manual of morals to a people, instruct a people and acquired the stature of a national code. Khan, 1983, page 9 and 10. It epitomized the aspirations of Indian society, artha, kama, and most importantly, dharma. Valmiki objectified the moral ideal through the lives of his notable characters. Rama was best of upholders of dharma. Bharata, a man of brotherly love. Bharato, Bharat, Bharat Vatsala. Lakshmana. So these are the characters that we are talking about. Rama, the best of upholders of dharma. Bharat is also a character, a man of brotherly love. So Ram and Bharat were both blood brothers. Lakshmana was Lakshmana was marked with goodness in serving his elder brother, while Sita was like daughter of the gods, owing to her fidelity to her husband. Rama was exemplar of human relationships. Rama was the exemplar in human relationships, the ideal son. He readily accepted his father's order of exile in an extraordinary demonstration of filial obedience. Rama said on that occasion, "And righteousness is this, submission to one's mother and father. This is this is the eternal way of righteousness." Goldman, 1984, page 42, 27, 29, and 30. Lakshmana's contention that the old king had been swayed by the wiles of a woman and that exiled must be resisted with was rebuffed. Articulating a new ethical dimension, Rama asked, "How, after all, could a son kill his father? Whatever the extremity, or a brother, his brother, Shaumitri, his very own breath of life." Rama's quest was for dharma, righteousness. It was for dharma, not political power, that he suffered in this world. Righteousness, he said, is paramount in the world, and on righteousness truth is founded. Further, I fear the danger of unrighteousness, adharma. He declared to the minister, Jabali, that he had a personal code of righteousness, pratyagama dharma, one that he knew to be correct. He rejected the code that only debased, vicious, and covetous and evil men observe. In Rama, the political and the spiritual converged. The king became a moral or spiritualized ruler. The integration of the political and spiritual restored the golden age and accounted for the enshrinement of the Ramayana in Indian culture. Rama's marriage to Sita represented the ideal monogamous marriage. Rama's monogamy contrasted sharply with the polygamy of other kings like Vali and Ravana. And even his own father, uh, Bali, was additionally guilty of incest as he had taken his brother's wife, who was like his own daughter-in-law. Rama and Sita's mutual love and trust through all through all vicissitudes became the personification of the inviolability and sacredness of the marriage bond.
दादा थोड़ी
Sita's
अ, आपके
yes,
उसमें स्टैटिक नॉइस आ रही है थोड़ी सी उसमें से।
static noise आ रही है.
हाँ, थोड़ी-थोड़ी बीच-बीच में।
Let me just check my audio. Thanks. But is it coming on YouTube or it is coming on here as well?
StreamYard पे आ रही है।
Stream. Okay. I have enabled. Let me read it and then we'll.
हुँ।
ठीक है. So not a problem. Yeah, where I was. Hmm. Sita's okay sacredness of the marriage bond. Sita's moral purity and devotion to her husband in all circumstances became the symbol of the dharma of woman. So this is so in this preface, the author Meenakshi Jain actually is quoting a lot of other sources, primarily not Indian uh, authors, who had actually quoted the virtuous character of Rama, and how his, uh, how would I describe it? How when he was in a situation where he was being wrongly not made the king, and he had to accept and go to the forest for 14 years, and how all so his his actions and his actions were quite different and morally correct as per the dharma was taught. So as he mentions that his father had multiple wives. Okay, Bali had multiple wives, but in terms of dharma and upholding dharma, for him, upholding dharma was the primary duty of his, and to be, and he actually, yes, Abhay. Okay. Let me read it because it's very interesting and it's a very big book, so it will take some time. But it's very interesting that we are reading this. I wanted to read this for a long time, but finally we have the chance to read it. Okay, let's go here. Yeah. Rama was the Rama was the epitome of brotherly love and the ideal friend. And okay, no, I think we missed something. Sita remains the unparalleled icon of wifely chastity, Abhay Agarwal might be feeling a bit sad about this, but no, we have to read it. Sita remains the unparalleled icon of wifely chastity. When threatened by the Rakshasas in Ashokvan, she overcame her terror from her uncompromising devotion to her husband. Rama was the epitome of brotherly love and the ideal friend and protector, as evident in his dealings with Lakshmana, Sugriv, and Vibhishan. Lakshman and Hanuman's fierce loyalty and service to Ram and Bharat's actions were paradigms of honorable conduct as well. Bharat installed not himself but Rama's sandal, Paduka, on the throne of Ayodhya. The Paduka were no ordinary footwear. They had been worn by the man of Dharma. Hanuman was the archetypical Ram Bhakt. So we are all quoting from the various books and authors. So this is a quote from Goldman, 2007, page 85. So we are reading here now the authors and books which were written primarily by foreigners and how they actually describing the character of Sri Ram. He tore open his own chest to reveal the images of Ram and Sita in his heart. Ramayana was the first literary attempt in India to moralize the exercise of political power. Very important, this line we need to remember. The Ramayana was the first literary attempt in India to moralize the exercise of political power. It addressed the issue of kingship and its attendant problems like acquisition, preservation, and implementation of power. Today, when we see politics and we get all the wrong signals about politics and politicians, but when we read Ramayana, we see that political power doesn't have to be bad at all times. The, the situation determined that political power be concentrated in royal dynasties and kingship be transferred through heredity. By outright rejecting naked aggression and unrighteousness, Valmiki advocated a new political ethics, a new humanism in political behavior. Violence and unscrupulous political opportunism were the tactics of the inhuman. They were what set. They were what set Kishkinda and Lanka. So Kishkinda is the kingdom of Rama, and Lanka apart from the civilized polity of Ayodhya. So Lanka was the abode of Ravan. In both Kishkinda and Lanka, the contest for power between brothers was settled by the sword. Ordered succession according to the rules of uh, primogeniture in royal dynasties was the preferred code of conduct. Bharat repeatedly stated that Rama was the rightful ruler according to Raj Dharma, and a younger brother may not rule while his elder was alive. Bharat said, "It has always been the custom of our house that the kingship passes to the eldest son. The other, the other course is an evil one, followed only by ignoble men and letting and leading to hell. Were I were I to take it, I should become a blot on the house of the Iskavas in the eyes of all the world." He told his mother, "The kingship belongs to that wise prince who has practiced chastity, perfected his knowledge, and always striven for righteousness. The kingship and myself belong to Rama." Uh, okay. Shekhar is not there. Okay. So we will discuss few of the points, which are very important points, and they also relate to how our political life, the current modern political life, is in current circumstances. And Valmiki presented the king as the personification of the dharma of the kingdom. He was pivotal of the well-being of his realm. Rama personified the ideal of righteous kingship and became model for kings. So we know that the king of Thailand is known as Rama third, fourth, one. So Ram is the ideal king, not in India but also outside India. One must behave like Ram became the standard injunction that kings had to strive to emulate. The difference between Ram and Ravan was that Ram lived according to dharma while Ravan did not. Ravan had greatness, not goodness. Ram had both. Ram Rajya stood not just for strong and successful government, but for righteous government. Ravan represented the evil of the unrestrained abuse of power, and Ram the virtue of the deliberate subordination of power to the constraints of social and moral righteousness. By killing Ravan, replacing him with his dharmic brother, Rama was extending righteous government to the kingdom of the Rakshasas. By replacing Dasharath, Vali, and Ravan, he was restoring the ethic of proper governance to the various orders of creation: human, the animal, and the supernatural. Ram's rejection of Sita twice was determined by the fact that a righteous king must always be above reproach. Anyone connected with him must be equally so. Ram fortified his personal feelings to uphold dharma. An ideal king had to respect the opinion of his subjects. Ram admitted to Lakshman, I fear what people might say. Ramayana was also an attempt at ordering society and establishing the Varna order. This was reflected in so the Varna system. नहीं दीदी यहाँ बहुत सारे रेफरेंस है मैं रेफरेंस को स्किप कर रहा हूँ बस इफ आई रीड रेफरेंसेस इट विल बिकम टू बिग सो आई एम जस्ट रीडिंग the quotes from the authors when Meenakshi mentions. Ramayana was also an attempt at ordering society and establishing the Varna order. So the Varna system and today's caste system. So the Varna system was based on merit. That somebody who is a good archer and who is a Brahman, he can become a Kshatriya because he has all the qualities of becoming a Kshatriya. So that's how we see Varna system, based on merit, not on which family you are born. This was reflected in several incidents, most notably the defeat of Ram Ram Jamand, Rama, Parshuram, defeat of Parshuram, a Brahmin who wielded weapons. I was giving this example of Varna system. This was reflected in several incidents, most notably defeat of Parshuram, a Brahmin who wielded weapons which was against his natural calling as per his caste status. Ram Rama Dashrathi repeatedly stressed that it was the duty of the Kshatriya alone to wield weapons. Ram Jamardhanaya had slain a Kshatriya 21 times before he confronted Ram Dashrathi. He had, so King Dashrath was his father, so his name is taken as Ram Dashrathi, son of Dashrath. He had heard that Ram Dashrathi had broken the bow of the Shiva at the court of King Janaka of Mithila in order to win the hand of his daughter Sita. He now appeared before King Dashrath and his party when they were returning to Ayodhya after Ram's marriage. He challenged Ram Dashrathi with the bow of Rishi Jamdanya himself, which had come from Vishnu. Ram Dashrathi strung the bow without breaking it, and with his arrow destroyed the worlds that Ram Jamadhanaya had won with his tapas. Parshuram was defeated without a fight. He accepted his eclipse, recognized Ram as Vishnu, and addressed him as the imperishable slayer of Madhu and Lord of the gods. So, as we all know, that Shri Ram is avatar of Vishnu. So here in this incident mentioned that okay, when Rama had defeated Parshuram, Parshuram accepted that he was the reincarnation of Vishnu. Madeline, okay, this is again an author's name, probably a French author. Madeleine Biardou, I may be the name I am not incorrect, it's a French name. So Madeleine Biardou viewed the interrelated themes in this episode as an affirmation of the complementarity of Shiva and Vishnu, Rama having strung both their bows, an indication of superiority of Vishnu over Shiva, restrained over restrained over the power of destruction and the eclipse of the destructive avataric role of what is this? Yeah, Parashuram by restorative avataric role of Dasharathi. John Brockington, however, argued that there was no real sign of the complementarity between Vishnu and Shiva. Brockington, 1998, page 459. An inclination to exalt Vishnu over Shiva, however, palpable in the Ramayana. So there are contradictory accounts that was a kind of a rivalry between Vishnu and Shiva. But there are so some people agree, some people do not agree. The episode has traditionally been interpreted as representing the passing of avatar status from one Ram to others. As the Narasimha Purana stated, then the power of Vishnu passed from the body of Parasurama right before the eyes of all the gods and entered Rama. The emphasis on the Varna model implied that the king was obliged not just to protect but also punish infringement of the social system. Rama's slaying of the Shudra ascetic Stambuka was to uphold the social order and contrasted with his friendly encounter with the ascetic Shabari. So we all know the Shabari episode. Bharat, while pressurizing Ram to return to Ayodhya, also referred to the duty of protecting the four Varnas. Buffington, 1984, page 158 to 20. Ramayana described a social order wherein the Kshatriyas accepted the Brahmin as their superiors and the Vaishya were subservient to the Kshatriya. The Sudras, devoted to their proper duty, served the other three classes, Varnas. So here we have to understand that the Varna system was a kind of a passing of knowledge from, so if somebody who is a lawyer, then because his father is a lawyer, so to his daughter or his sons, he will pass on the knowledge of that the father had gained by being employed as a lawyer. So by naturally, the son and daughter would want to become lawyers. But it was not restricted. As we see, Parasuram was a Brahman, but he wielded weapons. And nobody said that you cannot wield weapons. And he was considered as Kshatriya, not Brahmin, because the Varna is decided by the merit of the person, what he can do. So it was a fluid system where if you had the skill and the merit, you can become a Kshatriya if you wish to be. It has been It has been said that the Ramayana preserves a great culture's exploration of such central issues as the nature and function of political power and of hierarchical social order. It formulates on the one hand, hopeful solutions to insoluble political problems, and on the other, a code of conduct that makes life possible. It is an expression of the needs, ideals, and beliefs of the culture that produced it and continues to cherish. Goldman, 1984-40. So what I am reading is now is the quotes and a reference to Ram and Ramayana and its character and various episodes of Ramayana by various authors. Camille Bulk noted that the entire Sanskrit literature bears the imprint of Valmiki and Rama story was for the centuries the subject matter of poetry and drama throughout the Indian subcontinent and large part of Asia. Very important point which mentioned here that as if you can if you people who are watching if you can go back to our previous live streams where we spoke to Anita Bose, author of the book Ramayana and the Footprints in Southeast Asia, where we see Ramayana stories are being told, being immortalized in plays, in paintings, in frescoes across the region, from Philippines to Vietnam to Malaysia to Indonesia to Thailand to Laos. So, and this bears the proof of this that Camilla Bulk noted that the entire Sanskrit literature bears the imprint of Valmiki and Rama story was the centuries of subject matter of poetry. So people wrote poetry, people wrote drama throughout the Indian subcontinent and large part of Asia. He said, the extraordinary influence of Valmiki is due to the pathos and charm of Rama's story itself, the artistic merit of his poetry, and the vivid portrayal of high moral values. The Ramayana of Valmiki conquered the heart of religious minded India, chiefly because of the importance it attaches to things of the spirit, because of its noble conception of sanctity, of marriage, married love, and sacredness of a pledge, its high ideal of duty, truthfulness, and self control, very important self control, its living example of domestic and social virtues, its deep faith in the ultimate meaning of life as a struggle between good and evil. Very important, this specific point, okay, which we sometimes miss. Its deep faith and the ultimate meaning of life as a struggle between good and evil. We as human beings, as normal human beings, we are more often had to choose between good and bad things that we can do. And Ramayana teaches us we always choose the good, not the bad, even if it benefits us. It is precisely this ethical aspect of the original Ramayana that is usually singled out for special praise in Indian sources. Well, Ramayana in Indian tradition. Ramayana has indeed been hailed down the ages for its new message of the godly, heroic and the godly in human relations. In 1899, shortly before presiding over the Lucknow session of the Indian National Congress, R.C. Dutt abridged Valmiki's Ramayana in English for the benefit of Western readers. In his epilogue by the translator, he highlighted the importance of the epic in Indian life. He wrote, Ram and Sita are the Hindu ideals of a perfect man and a perfect woman. Their truth under their truth under trials and temptations, their endurance under privations, and their devotion to duty under all vicissitudes of form, fortune form the Hindu ideal of a perfect life. In this respect, the Ramayana gives us a true picture of Hindu faith and righteous life. Sorrow and suffering, trial and endurance are part of the Hindu ideal of a perfect life of righteousness. The pious Hindus saw in Ram's life the ideal of a true Hindu life, the success and triumph which follow upon endurance and faith, and the devotion to duty. It is the truth and endurance of Ram under the sufferings and provisions which impart the deepest lesson to the Hindu character. and its highest ideal of a Hindu righteous life. And if trial and endurance are part of a Hindu's ideal of a man's life, devotion and self abnegation are still more essentially a part of his ideal of a woman's life. Sita holds a place in the hearts of women in India, which no other creation of a poet's imagination holds among any other nation on the earth. The literature of the world has not produced a higher ideal of womanly love, womanly truth, and womanly devotion in India. Ramayana is still a living tradition and a living faith. It forms the basis of the moral instruction of a nation. And so, as a lot of people would know, that the first constitution of India, when it was drafted in 1951, if I am mistaken, to correct me, uh, the first page of the Indian Constitution originally had a Ramayana picture, the picture of a Ramayana story or incident. So that is how the Bharat draws its moral and political righteousness from the Ramayana itself and Ram and his character. And it is part of lives of 200 million people. The story of Ram has inspired our religious reformers, purified the popular faith of our modern times. To know the to know the Indian epics is to understand Indian people better. Not long after R.C. Dutt, Rabindranath Tagore emphasized the domestic virtues of ancient Hindus as a special feature of the Ramayana. He said, this is quote by Rabindranath Tagore, the bond of piety and relation of love and respect between father and son, brother and brother, husband and wife. The Ramayana has so enabled them as to make them readily appropriate for an epic. The Ramayana demonstrates the utmost reach of a son's obedience to his father, one brother's self-sacrifice for another, the mutual devotion between husband and wife, the duty of a king towards his subjects. No epic of any other country has taken up such domestic concerns of an individual as its subject matter. This tells us not only about the poet but also about India, not brute force, nor desire for conquest, nor national glory. Upon a foundation of noble valor, Ramayana has set up the ideal of domestic piety, vessel, vessel of the rasa of serenity, anointed with the tears of compassion. Das and Chaudhary, 2001, page 255. C. Rajagopalachari, whose Ramayana went into a second edition within 6 months. I think many people would know the name of Sri Rajagopalachari, whose Ramayana went into a second edition within 6 months of its publication, stated in his preface that one could not understand Hindu Dharma unless one knew Ram and Sita, Bharat, Lakshman, Kumbhakarna, and Hanuman. Rajagopalachari, 1987, page 8. Appealing to the youth to read Ramayana and Mahabharata, he said, there was not a page after reading which one would not emerge with greater courage, stronger will, and purer mind. He elaborated. There are records of the mind and spirit of our forefathers who cared for the good ever so much more than the present and who saw more of the mystery life than we can do in our interminable pursuit of petty and illusory achievements in the material plane. We should be thankful to those who preserved for us these many centuries old epics in spite of all the vicissitudes through which our nation passed since Vyasa and Valmiki's time. So he's talking about the invasions that took place. Even the poet, even the poets who wrote these epics in the original did not create but built out the inherited bricks of a national memory prior to their own time, Rajagopalachari. He added, let us keep ever in our minds the fact that it is the Ramayana and the Mahabharata that bind our vast numbers together as a one people, despite caste, space, language that seemingly divide them. Very important. So every village or every village in India across Bharat, you will see a name called Ram would be there in the village name from deep south even to places in Arunachal and northeast till today. So Ramayana and Mahabharata are the binding blocks which unite us. Even we speak different languages, we look different, we eat differently, and we are a different caste, but we are all one because of Mahabharata and Ramayana. Thorough familiarity with our ancient heritage is necessary if we desire to preserve our individuality as a nation and serve the world through dharma, which alone can save mankind from error and extinction. Rajagopalachari. Sri Aurobindo said, the work of Valmiki has been an agent of almost incalculable power in the molding of the cultural mind of India. It has presented it has presented to it be the loved and imitated figures like Rama and Sita, made so divinely and with such a revelation of reality as to become objects of enduring cult and worship, or like Hanuman, Lakshman, Bharat, the living human image of its ethical ideals. It has fashioned much of what is best and sweetest in the national character, and it has evoked and fixed in those finer and exquisite yet firm soul tones and the more delicate humanity of temperament, which are a more valuable thing than formal outside of virtue and conduct. Sri Aurobindo. Mahatma Gandhi, amongst all leaders of the national movement, was most influenced by Ramayana. In 1908, he had an abridged Hindi Ramayana of Tulsidas published at his international printing press at Durban for the use of Indians in South Africa. As a leader of the freedom movement, he repeatedly stated that Swaraj would be Ram Rajya. The term meant the reign of ideal justice, perfect democracy, and reign of self-imposed law of moral restraint. Of Vishnu's incarnations, Gandhi's favorite was Ram, the seventh avatara and hero of the Ramayana. His preferred religious music was Ramdhun, composed according to legend by Tulsi while visiting the Vishnu temple at Dakor, northern India. For Gandhi, the general spirit of India was most vividly reflected in the Ramayana, Mehrotra. Foreign observers on the Ramayana. A number of foreign scholars appreciated the centrality of Ramayana in the Indian scheme. Edwin Arnold, 1832-1904, wrote, the stories, songs, ballads, and histories and genealogies, the nursery tales and religious discourse, the art, the learning, the philosophy, the creeds, the moralities, the modes of thought, the very phrase saying the very phrases, sayings, turns of expression, and daily ideas of the Hindu people are taken from these poems, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Their children and their wives are named out of them. So are their cities, temples, streets, and cattle. They have constituted the library, the newspaper, and the Bible, generations after generation, to all succeeding and countless millions of Indian people. And it replaces patriotism with that race and stands instead of nationality to possess these two precious and inexhaustible books and to drink from them as from mighty and overflowing rivers. They are personified, worshipped, and cited from something divine. Monier Williams noted, from Kashmir to Cape Comorin. The name of Cape Comorin, I need to check which place you're talking about. From Kashmir to Cape Comorin, the name of Ram is on everyone's lips. So, in North India, the general people introduce or talk to each other by saying Ram Ram. So this Ram Ram is something which is kind of a very common thing in North India, and it was there somewhere also in other parts, but in North India it's very prevalent. Monier Williams noted, from Kashmir to Cape Comorin, the name of Rama is on everyone's lips. All sects revere it and show their reverence by employing it on occasions. For example, when friends meet, it is common for them to salute each other by uttering Ram's name twice, Ram Ram. Then, no name is more commonly given to children, and no name is more commonly invoked in the hour of death. So, when people are born, they given a Ram's name of Rama, and when they also die, they take the name of Vishnu Avatar, the seventh avatar of Vishnu. It is a link of union for all classes, castes, and creeds. Monier. A. MacDonald remarked on the hold of the epic. Probably no work of world literature, secular in its origin, has ever produced so profound an influence on the life and thought of people as the Ramayana. The nobility and magnanimity of Rama's character and conjugal devotion and fidelity of his wife Sita have, for a great many centuries, exercised a far reaching moral effect as paragons for imitation among Indians. So, I think we all would have heard of Ramcharitmanas. So, it literally means the character of Ram, that human character would be like Ram's character. His his early deification has, moreover, secured to the hero of the Ramayana the worship of Hindus down to the present day. Maurice, Maurice Winternitz described Ramayana as a true popular epic. It has become the property of the entire Indian folk, and as perhaps no other poem in the entire world literature has influenced the whole thinking and writings of the folk through all centuries. Since more than 2000 years, the poem of Rama, has remained alive in India, and it continues to live in all strata and classes of folk, high and low, princes, peasants, landlords, and artisans, princesses, and shepherdesses are well versed with the characters and stories of the great epic. Moreover, teachers, masters of various religious sects take the support of the authority of Ramayana and draw from it when they want to spread religious and moral teachings in the folk. Generations of Hindus in all parts of India have known the old legend Ram in such modern translations. Even our days they arrange recitations of this poem in the houses of the rich. So Ram Katha, which was organized by the rich and powerful kings and landlords. Also, dramatic adaptation of the story of Ram can be seen enacted in the villages and towns of India on religious and festival occasions. So Ram Leela is organized across India without any caste, creed, and anything being coming into it. Okay, we are almost about 12. About this work. This work briefly examines the antiquity of Ram Katha and the gradual spread of Rama cult over the Indian subcontinent in the context of the claims of the left academics on its late popularity. This so this this is followed by the summary discussion of the early history of Ayodhya and Hindu endeavors to reclaim their sacred spaces in the medieval era. Its main focus is the conflict at Ayodhya over the Ram Janmabhoomi temple allegedly destroyed by the Mughal emperor. So this book is written when the Supreme Court verdict was not there. So that's why the author mentions allegedly destroyed by the Mughal emperor Babur in 1528. It examines the accounts of foreign travelers in the 17th and 18th century and British administrator scholars in the 19th and early 20th centuries, which testify to Ayodhya's continuing importance as a pilgrimage center associated with Rama's birthplace. The extended litigation over the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid in colonial times further attests to the persistence of the claims of the to the Janmabhoomi. From late 1980s, left historians have been in the forefront of the campaign against Ram Temple. They have argued that Ram worship was an 18th, 19th century phenomena and present day Ayodhya acquired this standing and identity only in the 5th century AD during the rule of the imperial Guptas. According to left academics, the Ayodhya of Valmiki was fictional and the identification of the Ram Janmabhoomi in Ayodhya was a matter of faith, not of historical evidence. They also wholly rejected any possibility of Babri Masjid being built on the site of a Janmabhoomi of Janmabhoomi temple. Excavations by the Archaeological Survey of India (ASI) proved the inaccuracy of these assertions. Ayodhya 2002, 2003, ASI 2003. Finally, the judgment of Allahabad High Court Lucknow bench marked a decisive moment in the dispute over the Janmabhoomi. The writings of left academics, the findings of the ASI, the extended arguments in the Allahabad High Court, and its eventual verdict all from the subject of this study. So these are notes. I'll not read the notes. We'll read the first chapter, the introduction. So this is something which a lot of people might not know how the Ram Janmabhoomi case was fought and how we won the case. So this book is very important in that reason because people might not have read all the books which were there to actually which gave the final credit to the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and the case was won by the Hindu side. So let's read the first chapter. Chapter 1, Introduction, A Case for Ayodhya. The Allahabad High Court, Lucknow bench judgment on the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid dispute delivered on 30th of September 2010 by Justice Sudhir Agarwal, D.V. Sharma and S.U. Khan caused considerable concentra- concentration in the left academic circles. The very next day, a statement against the verdict was released by Sahmat, signed among others by Professor Romila Thapar, D.N. Jha, Shireen Musvi, Irfan Habib, D. Mandal, Supriya Verma, Jaya Menon, and Sita Ram Roy. The people who are opposing the Ram temple, and their name is Sita Ram Roy, all of whom had been active on on the pro-Masjid side in the preceding years. The Sahmat statement criticized the court for accepting the claim that Hindus had since times immemorial believed that the Babri Masjid marked the site of Ram's birthplace and converting that into the argument for deciding property entitlement. By its judgment, the court had provided legitimacy to violence and muscle power and acknowledged the demolition of Babri Masjid in 1992 as an act whose consequences are to be accepted by transferring the main parts of the mosque to those clamoring for a temple to be built. Sahmat 2010. In an article in the Hindu on 2nd October 2010, Tomila Thapar described the verdict as political judgment and a response to an appeal by Hindu faith and belief. By categorically endorsing one point of view, the court had created a precedent land that that land could be claimed by declaring it the birthplace of a divine or semi-divine being worshipped by a group that defines itself as a community. She prophesies there will now be many such Janmsthans wherever appropriate property can be found or a required dispute manufactured. The High Court decision had annulled respect for history and seeks to replace history with religious faith. Professor Thapa regretted that in the summary of the verdict, there was no mention of the act of wanton destruction of the Babri Masjid, which was part of our cultural heritage. Writing in People's Democracy on 17 October 2010, Irfan Habib attacked the astonishingly one-sided nature of the decision, which was an absolute legitimization of the demolition of Babri Masjid. The judges had treated the issue of Hindu faith in the exact birthplace of Lord Ram as the main decisive point, and lamentably failed to make what should be an elementary distinction between faith and propaganda. The claim that Babri Masjid marked the site of Ram Temple, he asserted, had begun to be made locally only after 1934 riots. In the in the 1980s, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad (VHP) and Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh launched a nationwide campaign to spread that claim. What had till then been believed by a few local enthusiasts was made into an article of faith by the Allahabad High Court's ruling. Further, by supporting this deliberate invention of tradition, the court had overlooked the far stronger and far more ancient belief in the benevolence and justice of Lord Ram. He had converted Lord Ram into a judicial entity, a, a, a mere petitioner before himself, and thereby legally sanctified a baseless claim. These are all the articles written by the left historians when the Allahabad High Court judgment came. The conferment of judicial entity on a supernatural power, Professor Habib argued, was inconsistent with the country's secular constitution. He charged that the High Court had violated every principle enshrined in the preamble. It was vital. So, and these are all the things. And I think when we read the further chapters, we will know that all these have been debunked. These all have been proven to be inaccurate and bit malicious in their selective words which were being used. It was vital for the Supreme Court to ensure that all courts below it did their duty to the people of India. No effort at reconciliation should be allowed to impede the effort to get a manifest wrong set right through. Only recourse now available is the process of law. Immediately on pronouncement of the judgment, it was declared that an appeal would be made to the Supreme Court. A campaign was instantaneously launched to discredit the High Court verdict in view of the impending hearing by the apex court. 13 articles against the judgment published in various newspapers in the month of October 2010 alone were compiled by Sahmat and printed in a pamphlet titled On the Ayodhya Judgment of the Allahabad High Court, Sahmat 2010. The 11th December 2010 issue of the Economic and Political Weekly devoted 40 pages to the verdict on Ayodhya. Also, in December 2010, the Aligarh Historian Society published a booklet History and Judgment of the Allahabad High Court, Lucknow bench in the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid case. A 3-day symposium on democracy after the Ayodhya verdict was organized by the social scientists, communalism, combat, and Ahmed. All left control organizations. As the date of hearing approaches, the left campaign gathers momentum. And many of these people had their names, and Ram was in one of the words. The, the belligerence of left academics was at odds with their inability to validate and authenticate their assertions in the court. So when they lost the case in the court because they did not have any valid justifications, data, and arguments, they shifted to public posturing to actually pressure the court. On the very issue they continue to raise outside, they had so as per law you're going to fight the case in the court, okay, and give your argument, and the court will decide whose argument is correct, whose argument had some validity. So when they lost the case in the court, they were trying to win the case by sheer brute force of narrative and media. On the very issue they continue to raise outside, they had been found on weak footing in the Allahabad High Court. Evolution of Rama cult. The left movement against Ram Janmabhoomi commenced in 1989 when the Center for Historical Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, issued the Political Abuse of History, Babri Masjid Ram Janmabhoomi dispute, an analysis by 25 historians. Permanent left historians joined soon after. Thapar, 1989. Sharma, Habib, People's Democracy, 7th and 14th April. A common thread runs through the left writings on Ram and Ayodhya. There is a consensus that Ram was not a historical figure, that Ayodhya was a mythical city, that present day Ayodhya was originally known as Saket and was a Buddhist stronghold. That Ram worship was an 18th century phenomena, that the Babri Masjid was built on a vacant land, and that the Hindu-Muslim divide at Ayodhya was created by the British in colonial times. And every one of their argument was debunked in the court with evidence of archaeology, with evidence of historicity, of accounts of authors and manuscripts. In contrast to left historians, scholars of Sanskrit epic trace the antiquity of Rama's story as far back as 5th century BC, when ancient ballets transmitted the Ram Katha orally. In the opinion of these scholars, the written version of Ram Katha probably commenced a century or two thereafter. Valmiki composing his Ramayana in the 4th or 3rd century. Okay, so Winter is, we have this MacDonald, Buffington, all had mentioned that it was when it was composed. An even earlier date of 8th or 6th century BC is also suggested by Jacob, 1960. Goldman. The literary, sculptural, and epigraphic evidence indicates that by the 4th or 5th century AD, the Rama cult had been established and had all India prevalence. By then, the evolution of Ram from epic hero to incarnation of Vishnu to supreme reality had been more or less completed. Jacob Desai. Scholars are of the view that divinity of Ram was acknowledged from early on, though the temple cult took time to develop. Bhandarkar, 1982. Bhandarkar is one of the most famous persons, Indologist, who founded the Bhandarkar Institute in Pune. In the 4th, 5th century, Kalidas, court poet of the imperial Guptas and ranked next only to Valmiki as a great Ramayana poet, stressed the divinity of Rama. In his Raghuvansh, Raghuvansh he described Ram as Ramobhina Hari, Hari known as Ram, Rai Chaudhary. Prabhupada Gupta, uh, uh, Prabhati Gupta, the Vakata queen, Prabhati Gupta, the Vakata queen and daughter of the Gupta emperor. Chandragupta too was also a Ram devotee. The two inscriptions she issued in the last quarter of the 4th century AD suggest that a sanctuary dedicated to Ram was situated on top of Ramgiri Hill, modern Ramtek, probably enshrining his footprints. Pada, Corpus Inscriptions in Dictum, Volume 5, 1963. Kalidas was Kalidas, who visited Vakataka kingdom at the behest of his Gupta monarch, mentioned Ramgiri in his uh, Meghdut. Prabhavati's son Pravasena too is credited with the authorship of Setu Bandha, in which Rama was regarded identical with Vishnu and not simply his incarnation. Pravas, Pravasena too built a temple dedicated to Ram in his new capital, Pravarpu, uh, Pravarpura, probably modern Pannur, Vardha, where he shifted sometimes between 431 AD to 439. Sculptured panels found at Pannur dating to the mid-5th century are among the oldest pieces of architectural evidence testifying to the iconographic representation of Ram. Slightly later are Ramayana panels at the temple at Devghar, Jhansi. Memories. The depiction of the story in stone occurred alongside its popularity in contemporary literature. Apart from apart from Ramopakhyana, the Mahabharata version of Rama's story, and representations in older Puranas like the Vishnu and Brahma Brahma Puranas and Bhasha's Pratima and Abhishek Natakas, Rama's story was the subject of several works in Sanskrit and Prakrit. In addition to Kalidasa's Raghuvansha and Pravarsena's Setubandha, may be mentioned the Prakrit text. Okay, this is very interesting. The Prakrit text. Okay, Vasudeva Hindi, Vasudeva Hindi of Sanghdesha. The it is the Kumacharya of the Jain teacher Vimala Suri, 4th century, and Bhatti's okay, Ravana Vadh, probably 6th century AD. According to Professor John Brockington, too little weight has been given to literary, sculptural, and epigraphic evidence, while it may not suffice to suggest that Rama was universally seen as avatara of Vishnu in the 5th century AD, it did not establish that no group saw him as such. Indeed, the evidence implied a special status for him, Buckingham. By the time the Muslim invasions, the Ramayana had evidently been deeply ingrained in the minds of the populace. That would explain why two important Gurjara ruling houses in the vanguard of the fight against invaders claimed descent from Rama's younger brother Lakshman. So Gurjara Pratihara were a dynasty in Gujarat. The Jodhpur inscriptions of Bauka, which gave the family history of the Mandor line, stated that his dynasty was named after Lakshman, who served as a uh, Pratihara doorkeeper to his elder brother Ram, and was bound to stop all intruders. Epigraphia Indica, Volume Puri, 1957. The Gwalior, the Gwalior Prashasti of the Gurjara Pratihara king Bhoja also trace the origins of the family to Lakshman, who served as the doorkeeper of Rama, owing to his commandment not to allow others to enter. The Rama cult underwent a second stage of evolution when Ram began to be depicted as his own right as a form of Vishnu. Among the oldest sculptural examples that attested to this development are to be found in the Jain temple of. So we see a lot of stories and a lot of claim by various people that Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, they were all breaking each other's temples, okay, as a kind of a propaganda. But when we see here, what we read here, the Ram cult underwent a second stage of evolution when Ram began to depict it in his own right as form of Vishnu. Among the oldest cultural that that attested to his development are to be found at Jain temple of Pashwanath and Khajuraho, 950 and page AD 950 and 970. It has two images of Ram on the outer wall in a Jain temple. The first depicts Ram holding the bow and arrow. The second shows him with four arms, holding the arrow in his upper right and lower left hand. His lower hand blessing Hanuman and his upper left holding Sita. At Ossian, near Jodhpur, in a niche on the wall of Amba Mata temple, 11th century AD, is a standing image of Ram and Sita portrayed as Lakshmi Narayan. Ram holds the four emblems of Vishnu. The only identifying mark is the figure of Hanuman standing to the right of Ram. The epigraphic records confirm that images of Ram had become commonplace in Tamil region by about 10th century. Mm. Champaka Lakshmi. In fact, by the 8th century itself, the concept of Ram as chief deity of the temple had come into vogue in the south. Nagaswamy, 1980. We have a book written by Nagaswamy sir, and we're going to read that book as well. Existing temples began to be celebrated as Ram temples. For example, the deity installed in the Govindaraj temple situated in the Nataraja temple complex at Chidambaram became identified as Ram accompanied by Hanuman. The earliest inscriptional evidence of Ram temple dates from the 7th year of the reign of Parantaka, 905, 955. Records of gift of land to Lord of Ayodhya of the Kodandarma temple in Chingalpet, Chingalpet district. Eventually, temples dedicated exclusively to Ram began to build on other parts of the country as well. Among the known examples from the 12th century, the oldest seem to be been in one at Ayodhya, another at Rajim in Raipur district, which is recorded in the Rajim stone inscription dated 1155, 1145. It states that Jagadal, Jagapal of the Kalchuris of Ratnapur has caused this beautiful temple to be constructed for manifesting the splendor of Ram. A third documented Ram temple was constructed Malay, by Malay Simha, the feudary of the Kalchuris of Tripuri in AD 1193. As a result of rise of Ram temple, new formulae, mantras, prayers, stotas, meditations, dhyan, formulae, mantras, prayers, stotas, and meditation, dhyana, etc. were required. Several Ramite cult texts were composed from 11th, 20th centuries. The three oldest were the okay, Rama. Okay, it's very difficult Sanskrit. I'll try to pronounce it. Ramapura Vatniya Upanishad. Okay, and the Ram Rakshatra of Vaudashika and Agastha Samhita. Okay, Agastha Samhita, so we know about it. okay, which probably originated in Banaras in the 12th century and dealt with Shiva's conversion to Ram Bhakti. According to the theological doctrine, Rama was not just an incarnation of Vishnu, but a supreme reality itself. Okay, we have to end this stream in 10 minutes because we have one more podcast coming at 10:30 p.m. On in Bengali. But so if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat, or if you have any comments, you can put in the chat. Okay. But this is only the introduction, so we're going to read the full book, and we are also going to scan pages so that you can also read with me. Because of time of paucity, I could not actually scan the books. We'll try to do it next time, and there are also a lot of pictures which are there. So it's a very interesting book. Namaste, Vaishali. So we are about to end this reading session. It's almost now 1.5 hours, and I have a Bengali stream at 10:30 p.m. So if you have anything that you want to ask me or you want to read any specific thing, do let me know. I'll try to answer it. Okay. And let me show you few pictures. It's very important. Okay. So early representation of Ramayana themes in the Indian art. So this is one picture. This one more picture. This is name of Ram, and this is how it looks like. So really great book, great research. I think, but not too many people read this book. So these are rare pictures and archaeological evidence. So these are all the excavations done at the Ram Janmabhoomi temple, which was destroyed and where Babri Masjid was built. So these are the evidences which actually thwart and expose the lies spread by the left historians who were lying from their teeth from the day one onwards. These are. Thank you, Vaishali. Hopefully my audio is okay. Do let me know if the audio has any issues. Hopefully you can see the pictures, and this is the Allahabad High Court documentation. So not sure how many people have read or gone through this documentation, but it's a good refresher that how us have fought for over 500 years to get our temples back. And the last one. Let me make it there. So we will end our reading stream today. I'll continue to read this book, very important book, in coming weeks. I'll try to read at least one session every week. I will read it or somebody else will read it apart from our podcast. So thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts. So we'll see you in about half an hour in our Bengali podcast on the history of Bengal with Shakko Singho. So do join us. We will discuss some very interesting topics that we see now being peddled by a lot of pseudo historians, a lot of propaganda on the history of Bengal. So till then, thank you everyone for joining. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.